mystery of Black Hollow Lane. Staying or going? Emmy rubbed her eyes. Why did her blanket smell funny, like perfume and old nail polish? She looked at the comforter and groaned. Right, she was in Arabella's bed, because her bed was trashed. She got dressed and walked to her room, where she found Lola and Madame Boyd sitting on her overturned mattress. When did you discover this had happened? Madame Boyd didn't bother with any pleasantries this morning. Last night when I was going to bed, I thought it was Victoria. She was looking for that stupid locket. And had you been in your room since you got back from the tournament? Madame Boyd interrupted. Yes, I threw my bag in there right after I got back. And obviously you would have noticed if your room had been in this state then, Madame Boyd said. Emmy's heart sank. She would have noticed. Then it could have been Victoria. It couldn't have been her, Lola said. She was downstairs all evening. Madame Boyd put her hand on Emmy's shoulder. I'm sorry, Emmy, but this is way beyond a roommate's revenge. Someone is targeting you for something serious. I will do everything I can to find out who it is, but in the meantime, I think we need to send you home. Madame Boyd may as well have kicked Emmy in the gut. Send you home? Just the thought of being sent home knocked the wind out of her. I don't think this was a random incident, and I'm genuinely concerned for your safety, Madame Boyd said. You can't punish her when she hasn't done anything wrong, Lola said. She's not being punished, she's being protected. I don't like it either, but I have to put her safety above everything else. But I'm going to speak to the headmaster about what it is to be done. Madame Boyd picked up her cane and left the room. Emmy kicked Victoria's chair. This was completely unfair. Whatever Madame Boyd said, being sent home was definitely a punishment, and she hadn't even done anything wrong. I told her because I thought she might be able to help us. Lola usually looked like a bull, ready to charge ahead with her next great plan. Now she looked like a helpless puppy who didn't know how to find her way home. I didn't think she'd try and send you away. Just forget it, Emmy mumbled. Madame Boyd would have found out eventually. Most of Audrey House and half of Edmund House had seen her trashed room the night before. There was still stuff everywhere, and it was making Emmy claustrophobic. She unfastened the window latch and pushed the glass wide open. Droplets of rain splashed off the window frame, bouncing and tapping at her fingers. She breathed in the familiar smell of wet pine trees and salty sea air. The forest, the mudflats, the football pitch, the common room, they all meant something to her now. When she had started thinking of Wellsworth as home, well, I think so. How could she be so rooted in a place she'd lived for less than a year? No place had ever really felt like home in Connecticut, and she'd lived there all her life. She leaned her head against the thick wooden window frame. Jonas had said this would happen. He said eventually this place would be in her blood, just like it was in his. Her lips started wobbling. She couldn't let this happen. She couldn't leave. Not now. Lola pressed her lips together and slapped Emmy on the shoulder. We won't let her send you away. That's all there is to it. Does it really matter that much? If we're all here? Lola crossed her arms and looked at the floor. Of course it does. Let's face it, most girls can't stand me. Emmy giggled. They don't like me much either. I guess we're stuck with each other. Lola's mouth twitched. I guess so. Maybe I don't want our team to have to find another striker. Madame Boyd had been gone all morning, and Emmy was sitting on a couch beside Lola, waiting. She can't send you away, Lola said for 100th time. She just can't. Emmy shrugged. If the headmaster agreed with Madame Boyd, she was out of here, and that was that. The common room door opened, and Madame Boyd strode in. In my office, Miss Willock. She looked annoyed. Was that a good sign or a bad sign? Maybe the headmaster was refusing to send Emmy home. Or maybe Madame Boyd had found out who had ransacked her room, and it was all some stupid prank. Sit down, Madame Boyd said. Emmy closed the office door and sat in the hard chair. She slipped her hands under her knees. I've spoken to the headmaster and to your mother, Madame Boyd said. Emmy pressed her lips together to stop herself from groaning. Getting her mum involved was the last thing she wanted. We all agree this is a very concerning incident. However, the headmaster doesn't believe this is a matter of personal safety for you. Emmy took in a sharp breath. Do you mean that? What I think you mean? He thinks the search was so thorough that there would be no point in anyone returning to your room. So I can stay? Emmy asked. Madame Boyd tapped her fingers on the desk. He didn't have all the facts, Emmy. I didn't feel it was appropriate to discuss your father or his history here. Emmy folded her arms across her chest. Madame Boyd could at least tell her about her father's history. It wasn't fair. I can't make you leave. I'm going to ask you to make that choice for yourself. I beg you to consider the risks, and I've already considered them. I'm staying. Emmy Boyd nodded and stood. Madame Boyd nodded and stood. If that's your decision, I won't stand in your way. She opened the door. Lola tumbled into the room and Emmy snickered. Lola wasn't the subtlest eavesdropper. She struggled to her feet and Madame Boyd snapped the door shut behind her. As you must already be aware, Miss Willick is choosing to stay at Wellsworth. Lola gave Emmy a thumbs up sign, which means I need to promise you both, Madame Boyd said. You will not be snooping into things that do not concern you, and you will not be wandering at night, and you will not be antagonizing others. Is that understood? She fixed each of them with a tight stare. They both nodded. Madame Boyd looked straight at Lola. And the part about not antagonizing people goes double for you. By the time Emmy got back to her ransacked room, she had 3 missed phone calls from her mother. It took a long time to convince her mum that everything was okay. She told her it was just a prank, that someone was just messing around. Emmy wished she could believe that herself. Jonas came by to ask Emmy a few questions about her ransacked room. Then Emmy and Lola started the cleanup. It took all day to get the room livable again. Jay gave Emmy her spare bedspread, and Natalie, who was about the same size as Emmy, lent her some jeans. By the end of the weekend, her room looked almost normal again. The next morning, Jack didn't turn up at breakfast, even though he should have gotten back the night before. At lunchtime, he ran into the hall, grabbed a few apples, and ran back out without saying a word. They didn't see him again until the humanities class, when he slid through the library door just at the last bell. Where have you been all day? Lola demanded. Didn't you get back last night? Jack glanced at Brian and shook his head. Later. All right, everyone, let's get started, Master Barlow called out. Since we're meeting in the library again, I suggest you use this time to do some research for your essays on how the laws of Elizabeth I are reflected in the writings of Shakespeare. You should all be finishing your outlines and compiling your notes. If for some inexplicable reason you have not chosen your play, he looked right straight at Lola, I would suggest you do that now. Everyone started getting out their books. Haven't you picked one yet? Emmy rooted in her bag for her copy of The Merchant of Venice. Nah, Lola said. I've already read them all, so it's not like it'll be hard. Emmy shook her head. I started it a week ago. You'll still get a better mark than me. Jack stood up and put his bag over his shoulder. I'm going to do some research upstairs, he said loudly. Okay, Lola said. Knock yourself out. Jack got a pen out of his bag, dropped it between Lola and Emmy, then reached down to pick it up. Meet me on the 3rd floor in 5 minutes, he whispered. Before they could say anything, Jack had spun around and was sauntering up one of the iron staircases. Emmy glanced at Lola. What was that about? Beats me. 5 minutes later, Emmy and Lola picked up their things and headed upstairs. It took a few minutes to find Jack. He was sitting in the middle of a row of books with a copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare on his lap. All this paranoia better be about more than Macbeth, Lola grumbled. Jack put the heavy book on the floor. Are you sure nobody followed you? Lola rolled her eyes, but Emmy nodded. I'm sure. I heard about what happened on the weekend. Jack looked at Emmy. Are you okay? Emmy tried to smile. No harm done. So, what did you find out? Jack unzipped his school bag. I'll tell you one thing. This box is old. He pulled out Emmy's box and handed it to her. I looked through it, one of my dad's books on identifying symbols, and I found a bunch of the ones that are stamped into the box. They're all associated with Catholic resistance groups from the 16th and 17th centuries. And I don't think the medallions are just for decoration. These things are solid pewter and they're incredibly intricate. They would have been really expensive to make. There has to be a point to them, some kind of purpose. You think these medallions actually do something? Emmy asked. I don't know, Jack said. But look at all the grooves and holes in them. Everything looks deliberately carved. Lola picked one up and squinted at it. It's almost like something's missing. Missing? Emmy asked. Yeah, Lola said. She held the medallion up to the light. Look at these ridges. Doesn't it look like something should fit in there? Maybe, Emmy said. She took the medallion and ran her fingers over it. It did feel like there was some kind of missing piece that would fit onto the backside. But what could it be? She put the medallion back in the box and closed the lid. Listen, where do you think I should keep this box? After what happened this weekend, I don't know if my room is the best place anymore. You think this is what they are after? Jack said. Emmy didn't say anything. She did think they were after the box, but she didn't want to say it out loud. Lola started chewing on her fingernail. There's something else I've been wondering about. Where do you think your dad got this box? Emmy shrugged. How should I know? It's just, Lola looked away. It wasn't like her to beat around the bush. It made Emmy nervous. Do you think maybe he stole it? Emmy stared at her. Why would you think that? Look, just hear me out, Lola said. Jonas said your dad had gotten into trouble here, and he said he was a troublemaker. Emmy corrected her. That's not the same thing. Yeah, well, Mum's reaction to hearing his name suggests it was some pretty significant trouble. Emmy felt her face get hot. Even though she couldn't remember her dad, it was still irritating to hear someone else talk about him like that. So what? So somebody went to a lot of trouble to look for something in your room. It must be something incredibly valuable to whomever it was. If your dad did steal something from that person, it obviously hasn't been found out yet. Maybe Emmy should keep the box in her room then, Jack said. Lola cocked her head at Jack. Really? It's like you said. They already turned her room upside down. They probably figure you don't have what they want. I hope you're right, Emmy said. I don't want to buy Jaya a new bedspread. She opened her bag and put the box inside. I think maybe I'll put the medallions in a different box, though, just to be on the safe side. Do you think? Suddenly she stopped. The floor was creaking nearby. Someone was in the next aisle. Emmy held her bag tight as the footsteps came closer and closer. Finding a lot of pertinent information, are we? Asked a cheerful voice. Emmy breathed a sigh of relief. It was just Master Barlow. Yeah, loads, Lola said. Barlow raised his eyebrows. In the zoology section? That's right, Lola said. There used to be the menagerie of the Tower of London, and I needed to check something about medieval chimps. Barlow seemed to be trying not to laugh. I see. And has that helped you to finally choose a play? It has, actually, Lola said. I'm going to do The Taming of the Shrew. Excellent, Barlow said. I suggest you get to do it then. They hurried to the nearest staircase, and Jack flicked Lola on the shoulder. Medieval chimps, that's the best you could come up with? Hey, I didn't hear you coming up with any ideas. They reached the main floor, but Emmy stopped on the last step. She felt like she was being watched. She looked back and saw Master Barlow looking at them from the top of the iron staircase. He smiled at her, then turned around and disappeared into the stacks.